In this video, we are going to look at how we can create an engine that drives change and improvement in teams and organizations. When trying to change and improve an organization, there are many challenges we must overcome, like resistance to change, getting stuck in a company culture, lack of follow-up and accountability, conflicts, poor planning, and so much more. How can we overcome these challenges and create a systematic way of dealing with them? Newer strategies suggest that rather than having big, one-off changes, we should create habits of improving a little bit all the time, and that the impact of this gives better results than big bang changes. Before we proceed, we need to have a clear understanding of the current situation. A good starting point here will be to run retrospectives in our teams and relevant groups. It is a great method for getting insight into current problems and gives people a habit of improving regularly. If you haven't heard about retrospectives before, check out our last video. In essence, it's an event where teams talk about what is working well and what could be improved. It is a bottom-up approach where each team is responsible for acting upon improvement ideas themselves. The great thing about this method is that it scales all the way from having a small company with one team to large companies with many teams. We only care about the team itself, and we can add as many teams as we want that solves different problems and fit the needs in the organization. Even though this solves a lot of our problems when it comes to handling change and improvement, it doesn't handle the problem of having multiple teams that have to work together or need to collaborate with people outside of their team. Many companies also have visions and goals for what they want to be or become that can impact multiple groups and teams. These can also change over time in order to handle new challenges that the company faces. Let's look at a few examples of how some models and frameworks suggest we can handle this. This model, called LESS, illustrates 3 teams working together to build some kind of product. On the left side, you can see that each work period starts with some planning events. And on the right side, ends with a review of the progress we made to gather feedback on our product, a retrospective for each team to talk about improvements in each team, and an overall retrospective where everyone is involved. The idea with this overall retrospective is that the teams can talk about things they can't solve by themselves in their own team. The overall retrospective might include around 20 people, which means a lot less time for each person to be included in the discussion than in a retrospective in one team. A typical way of solving this would be to split up the group into smaller groups that each have their own board to discuss problems or improvement ideas. This could be based on the teams themselves or randomly grouped to increase knowledge sharing across teams. Each group then shares their ideas to the other groups, and we sum up the event with a common discussion with everyone involved. At the end, the whole group agree upon specific actions that aims to improve collaboration across our teams. To sum this up, this model shows us an example of including everyone in a big overall retrospective to handle change and improvements across multiple teams. Frameworks like SAFe also have included a PI planning event where they include everyone in a big planning event, which includes a retrospective at the end. It is a 2-day event that is run once a quarter or so. This is another example of including everyone in big events to inform everyone of what is going on. The challenge with this approach occurs when we have too many people involved. Each group may have little time to collaborate with the majority of the whole group, and this is part of the reason why these events are so long and can feel very time-consuming. This model called Nexus, which is made for 3 to 9 teams, has a different approach, where they suggest that appropriate representatives from each team meet up and run these cross-team events. This means that each team runs their own retrospectives to improve themselves, and that representatives from each team meet up and focus on cross-team problems and ideas. We can run this event like a normal retrospective where the participants bring inputs from their teams. Everything is bottom-up and based on the needs of the teams. An advantage with this approach is that it takes less time for other members of each team who may have other things they want to focus on. A disadvantage would be that each representative would then have to inform members of their team what they need to follow up on. All right, so what do we have so far? We have seen that we can run these cross-team events as big gatherings once a quarter or so, or run them more regularly in sync with each work period. This means that when creating the right structure for our organization, we can adapt how often these events should occur based on our needs. We will be more flexible and track progress more easily if we run these events with shorter intervals in between them. We have also seen that we can include everyone in big events, which we can split up into smaller groups to better include the participants, or invite representatives from each team to keep the group small and focused. But what if your organization has more than 9 teams or groups? By taking inspiration from these ways of including people, we can make systems of change and improvement that are fit for the purpose and fit for the organization. Let's make an example with almost 100 people across 16 teams. Let's imagine an organization that roughly consists of these 5 roles. Let's start with our teams. Each team has a facilitator who runs retrospective events in the team. Each facilitator meets up regularly to deal with cross-team improvements that the teams can't solve by themselves. Since 16 facilitators reduce involvement time for each of them, we can group them into 4 breakout groups. Each group runs their own retrospective. We can bring everyone together at the end to agree upon specific actions to follow up on. Even though these facilitator meetings can handle a lot of the collaboration improvements, we'd also want to include improvement for the other roles we have as well. Now our engineers and business analysts also have a space to improve their practices as well. If a software engineer can't solve a problem in their own team or have some useful practices they want to share, they can bring it to their own cross-team meeting. To sync overlapping needs across roles, we can let a representative from each role meet up with a leadership team to sync improvement actions across our organization. Now we have created a system to handle bottom-up issues that includes teams through their retrospectives, as well as bigger improvements through these cross-team meetings. This means that any person in our organization has spaces where they can share ideas regarding how we can become better. We have created an engine for improvement. To handle top-down needs, such as organizational goals set from the leadership, we can also use these cross-team meetings as places to share these goals. We can gather opinions from the employees and track the progress of our goals as well. This could also be just one section of a bigger organization with multiple sections or departments. One unit can easily sync practices and needs from one department to another in the organization. To handle all of these needs, we can structure these cross-team meetings to include a 30-minute presentation for people who have something useful to share, a 60-minute breakout session, run like a retrospective to include everyone properly, and a 30-minute session at the end to track progress on our actions and goals. By taking inspiration from other useful frameworks, we have now designed a common meeting point that can handle most cross-team improvements and will help us to continuously become better. Of course, we should always adapt this to fit the need of our organization. A main point here is that there are many frameworks that suggest different ways of scaling multiple teams collaborating with each other, and these are some of them. Instead of just blindly following them, we can take inspiration from them and see what works for your organization. I hope you find these methods of including people useful when creating your own improvement engine. Good luck, and see you in the next video. If you want to do something like this for your own organization, our sponsor, Uetro, is perfect for you. In Uetro, you can create retrospectives for breakout groups and large-scale feedback events. Here is an example where we run one of the most basic retro exercises. We are 12 people here, and we are so many that it is better to split us up. I have created 3 rooms where each group can discuss their own improvement ideas. At the end here, we meet up together to group similar topics and to discuss what actions we should prioritize moving forward. We can see here that there are multiple people that have written something about feedback. When we look at the topics from the other groups, we can see that there is a note about that here as well. By grouping and voting, we can make it easy to see what is the most important topics for everyone. By focusing on those topics and create action points during our discussion, we can make sure our group agrees upon what is important to improve first. Make sure to check out Uetro for gathering improvement ideas for your organization.